What would you think if one of Asia's most modern, safe, and disciplined societies also contained scenes that leave outsiders both curious and uneasy? Taiwan is a place where high-speed trains run on time to the second. Semiconductor factories power the global economy. And streets are so clean you rarely see trash on the ground. But when night falls, a very different side begins to appear. There are jobs, habits, and images that, if they appeared in the United States, would immediately spark fierce public debate. In Taiwan, they exist quietly, tightly regulated, and accepted within a social order of its own. What surprises people is not the contrast itself, but how a society can be highly advanced and still allow things that seem to go against modern norms to exist side by side. And when you understand why this works, you begin to see that this story is not really about Taiwan alone. It raises a difficult question for the modern world we live in, and forces us to reconsider what we mean by progress, order, and tolerance. If you look at Taiwan only through growth statistics or high-tech images, you miss the most important part of the story. To understand why this society functions in such a distinctive way, you have to look deeper at the foundation that shaped it. Taiwan did not become disciplined and stable by accident. Everything here is built on a value system that places collective order above personal convenience. On crowded streets, you rarely hear angry car horns. People line up, follow traffic rules, and accept regulations that many Americans might find restrictive. In return, they gain a safe living environment, where children can go to school on their own and older people can walk outside at night without fear. Discipline here is not enforced through fear, but through a shared agreement that order benefits everyone. This foundation is what allows Taiwan to handle differences with flexibility. Instead of trying to completely erase controversial phenomena, society chooses to manage and contain them. Activities that do not fit mainstream norms are not displayed openly, but they are also not pushed into chaos. They exist within clear boundaries, under close supervision, so they do not disrupt the common rhythm of life. For audiences in the United States, where debates over personal freedom and social order are often intense, this approach can provoke serious reflection. Taiwan poses a difficult question. Can a society respect freedom while maintaining discipline, without sacrificing one for the other? And it is that question that leads us deeper into the less visible layers of life here. To understand how Taiwan maintains this fragile balance, you have to look first at what happens during the day, when the society's official face is most visible. This is one of the most densely populated places in Asia. Yet it operates with a level of order that surprises many large cities in the United States. The calm does not come from a lack of energy, but from a rhythm of life that is carefully organized. Public transportation is a clear example. High-speed trains connecting major cities run so precisely that delays are measured in seconds. People line up along marked lines, board without pushing, and rarely require firm intervention from authorities. Discipline here is not enforced by force. It is internalized as habit. Public spaces reflect the same philosophy. Parks, sidewalks, and residential areas are designed to encourage shared use without intrusion. You see pets walked through busy streets, older adults exercising in the morning, and children moving independently with their family's confidence. This is not an idealized image. It is the result of years of investment in social trust. For audiences in the United States, where public space has increasingly become a source of debate over safety and order, these scenes raise a difficult question. What allows a crowded society to maintain mutual respect? The answer is not technology or income. It lies in people accepting small limits in exchange for greater collective security. This daytime foundation is the prerequisite that allows Taiwan to manage differences and tensions when night falls. Without order in the daylight, there could be no flexible control after dark. And that is when the picture becomes more complex. When night falls, Taiwan does not turn into a different society. It simply reveals layers that are kept neatly out of sight during the day. This is what makes many outsiders, especially audiences in the United States, feel both curious and confused. Within the same orderly urban space, there exist activities that, in many other places, would be pushed to the margins or spiral into chaos. What stands out is how this society allows those layers to exist. They are not flashy. They do not invade shared spaces. They do not openly challenge core social norms. Instead of absolute bans, Taiwan chooses containment and management. Certain areas operate under clear rules, with enough oversight to ensure that everyday life for the majority remains undisturbed. This approach reflects a deeply pragmatic mindset. Human beings do not always live up to ideal behavior, and a mature society acknowledges that reality. The issue is not whether controversial behaviors exist, but where they are placed and how they are controlled. Taiwan seems to understand that forcing everything completely into the shadows often makes it more dangerous, not less, for Americans, where debates over personal freedom and public morality often become confrontational. This model offers a different perspective. Freedom does not have to mean uncontrolled exposure. Order does not have to be built through rigid prohibitions. Within this quiet balance, Taiwan maintains a relatively stable urban nightlife. Not perfect, not fully transparent, but stable enough for society to keep moving forward without tearing itself apart. And it is here that the story becomes more thought-provoking than ever. Among these layers of nighttime life, there is one phenomenon that once sparked global discussion, yet is viewed far more pragmatically by local people. It is the image of betel nut stands with provocatively dressed vendors, once fairly common along certain roads. For many audiences in the United States, this is quickly interpreted as moral looseness. In Taiwan's context, however, the story is far more complex. This phenomenon did not emerge from a demand for entertainment. It grew out of a very specific stage of economic development. Long-haul drivers, night shift workers, and laborers who needed to stay alert were the primary customers. The attention-grabbing presentation was simply a marketing strategy in an intensely competitive environment, where betel nut stands appeared one after another. It reflected economic pressure and survival more than any encouragement of a carefree or indulgent lifestyle. More importantly, Taiwanese society did not allow this trend to spread without limits. As social norms evolved and concerns about community image increased, authorities tightened regulations. The number of stands dropped sharply. Locations were restricted. Operating practices were adjusted to better fit public space. This transition happened relatively smoothly, without loud crackdowns or dramatic moral campaigns. What stands out is the public response. Instead of depolarization, most people came to see it as a passing phase in the process of urbanization. It was not celebrated, but it was also not turned into a symbol of decay. This approach reveals a certain social maturity, where issues are addressed through gradual adjustment rather than extreme confrontation, and it is through small stories like this that we see more clearly how Taiwan balances lived reality with the standards it aspires to uphold as a society, moving away from the controversial corners. Another rhythm becomes clearly visible when night falls in Taiwan. This is the world of night markets, where social life appears in a far more familiar and human way. For local people, night markets are not just places to eat. They are shared spaces where all walks of life come together after a long day. Narrow streets packed with food stalls, the smell of cooking in the air, and the constant hum of conversation create an atmosphere that is instantly recognizable. Yet what stands out most is the order within the noise. Stalls line up neatly. Trash is collected continuously. Crowds move with an almost natural flow. Density does not turn into chaos, because everyone understands their limits in a shared space. Night market food reflects the diversity of Taiwanese society. Traditional dishes sit next to modern twists. Meat-based meals coexist with vegetarian options. And importantly, rules on food safety and animal protection are enforced more strictly than many outsiders might expect. For audiences in the United States, this contrast can be surprising. Comfort and enjoyment here do not mean weak oversight. Night markets also reveal how Taiwan balances individual needs with the collective good. Vendors earn a living. Visitors relax and enjoy themselves. But no one has the right to disturb others. When a stall becomes too loud or takes up too much space, the first response often comes not from the police, but from the surrounding community itself. In places like these, we see a very different side of Taiwan's nightlife. Not sensational, not driven by controversy, but a smooth continuation of daytime life. And it is these ordinary, shared moments that quietly keep society stable, even when the city stays awake long after dark. Alongside the lively night markets, there is another side of Taiwan that receives far less attention, yet carries deep social meaning. It is the community of immigrants and foreign workers, including a large number of Vietnamese people. Their presence is quiet, not visible in headlines, but deeply woven into the island's daily functioning. In factories, construction sites, nursing homes, and care services, migrant workers play an essential role. They take on jobs that demand endurance, discipline, and patience. For audiences in the United States, this may sound like a familiar immigration story. The difference lies in how Taiwanese society integrates this workforce into everyday life. You can hear Vietnamese spoken in small markets, see it on station notice boards, or find it in classrooms for the children of migrant workers, grocery stores, restaurants, and services opened by Vietnamese workers become emotional anchors for the community, while also serving as cultural bridges to local residents. This coexistence is not perfect. There are still gaps and stereotypes, but it unfolds within a relatively clear legal and social framework. What stands out is Taiwan's effort to manage diversity through rules rather than emotion. Rights, responsibilities, and boundaries are clearly defined. Violations are addressed, but efforts to integrate are encouraged. This approach does not create an ideal picture, yet it helps prevent long-term conflict. In a globalized world, Taiwan's immigrant story reflects a challenge many countries, including the United States, are still struggling to solve. How can a society welcome outside labor while preserving order and identity? And through these quiet communities, we gain a deeper understanding of how Taiwan sustains its stability from within. When you step back and look at the whole picture, Taiwan does not appear as a perfect society, but as a system constantly adjusting itself to reality. What you see during the day and what emerges at night are not two separate worlds. They are two sides of the same social structure. One side emphasizes order, efficiency, and discipline. The other acknowledges the needs, tensions, and differences that are inseparable from human life. What makes Taiwan remarkable is not its ability to eliminate controversial issues entirely, but how it places them within limits. Instead of allowing conflicts to explode in public, society chooses quiet management, making gradual adjustments as norms evolve. This process is slow and sometimes uncomfortable, but it helps prevent major shocks that could fracture the community. For audiences in the United States, where social debates often unfold loudly and confrontationally, this model may feel unfamiliar. In Taiwan, many issues are not resolved through dramatic clashes, but through silent compromises among those involved. Not everyone is satisfied, but most accept the outcome because overall order is preserved. This acceptance gives the society a strong capacity for self-correction. When something no longer fits, it is gradually reduced without extreme measures. When a new community emerges, it is brought into the system through clear rules rather than emotional reactions. In the end, Taiwan poses a deeper question to the modern world. Does long-term stability come from chasing absolute ideals, or from accepting a complex reality and managing it with calm and clarity? And perhaps that question is what makes this story worth thinking about until the very last moment. As the story reaches its final moments, what remains is not the curious images that first caught your attention, but a hard-to-define feeling about how a society chooses to exist. Taiwan does not make grand statements about its model, nor does it try to prove it is right while others are wrong. It simply operates in the way reality demands. Here, order is not built by denying the complex sides of life, but by placing them within limits that can be managed. Freedom is not glorified to the point of tearing the community apart, and discipline is not imposed so harshly that it crushes the human spirit. This balance is fragile and constantly adjusted, yet it is precisely what helps society avoid extreme collisions. For audiences in the United States, where debates about morality, freedom, and order often turn into fierce confrontations. Taiwan's story offers a different lens. Sometimes, a society does not need to choose between black and white. Between those extremes lies a wide gray space, where people learn to live with differences without letting them destroy the shared structure. Taiwan also reminds us that stability is not a fixed state. It is an ongoing process. Each generation must re-examine whether boundaries should be for its own time. What was once accepted may no longer fit, and what was once rejected may slowly be reconsidered. In the end, this is not just a story about an island in Asia. It is an invitation to rethink how modern societies can survive in a world full of contradictions. Not perfectly, not with total transparency, but with enough clarity and restraint to keep moving forward without harming themselves along the way.